what should we do?
I'll go on my shoulders. I'll go on my
Yeah,
shoulders.
right.
Why is there corruption in Jewish communities if they abide by Torah law?
I think the question is a loaded question, like many of the questions are. Communities are made up of people. So a community as an entity is not corrupt. Every one of us has two drives. There's the drive to connect to God, which is the drive of the divine soul. Every one of us has a spark of God within us, and that divine soul wants one thing, and that is to fulfill our mission, to connect to God, to make the world a home for God. But we've also been given what we call a natural soul, an animal soul, and every one of us has this drive, the purpose and the desire of the animal soul is for personal survival. So that drives our ego, that drives our selfishness, because all I care about all that part of me cares about is myself. Every individual has this struggle. Now, whether someone follows Torah or doesn't, follows Jewish law, doesn't follow Jewish law, we have the same struggle. And for someone who is following Jewish law, then one would hope that, and I believe, that they are handling the struggle perhaps a little bit differently, with a little bit more consciousness of what the struggle is, and an effort. Someone who is following Jewish law and following halacha is someone who is making an effort to live their life according to the Torah. That does not take away the struggle. It doesn't mean that they don't have selfish feelings. It just means that they're working to overcome them, that they're involved in the struggle. So if you see corruption, or if you see someone doing something wrong, then yeah, that's human nature, that's the human condition. Am I supposed to judge someone else and say they are corrupt? I'm supposed to do the best I can. I look in myself and see, if I see corruption in myself, I have to overcome it. If I see something negative going on, I have to do it to the extent of my ability to try and fix it, or help a person fix it, guide them, talk to them about it maybe. But to somehow judge and say, well, the community is corrupt, even though they're observant, corruption is not observance. Someone is driven, let's say, and someone steals, and they're religious. They daven and pray in the morning, and then they go out and steal. Well, if they didn't pray in the morning, maybe they'd steal much more. Maybe they'd be killing people. I don't know. Maybe they'd be much worse. The effort, the personal effort to improve ourselves is something that we try and do all the time.
This conversation about the function of mitzvahs and why there's so many different sections and details and rules and regulations is that when someone is building a relationship with God, or even with someone in their life, there's thousands of moving parts, right? And it's not to say that because they bought the right thing for lunch but they didn't buy supper means that they're not in a good place in their relationship, right? It means that it's a work in progress, right? But they've done many things that day that have been right. It may be some things that day that have been wrong. But that's not to say that they're not working on that relationship, or frankly that they don't have a good relationship. I don't think there's anyone that's perfect. Although I think the question might be, I don't know, we'd have to ask the questioner, but I think the question was not hypocrisy, but as I understood the question was, if Judaism is supposed to be uplifting and this moral guide in life, why is it that people that claim to practice Judaism but are not living a moral life? The hypocrisy angle's, I think, a little bit different. Ultimately, I think we could probably agree that, in some sense, the fact that they are, I would agree with you with your definition of hypocrisy. But I think the question maybe is a little bit deeper, that if the Torah is supposed to be this influence in our life, and it's supposed to help us live, with this moral guide and the moral compass and help us do the right thing, why are there Jews who are
right? But it doesn't
notably not living a moral life?
It doesn't guarantee that you're gonna make it every time and you're gonna be perfect every time. Right? It doesn't guarantee you're not gonna make mistakes.
Yeah. So ultimately, a community is made up of individuals, and individuals are made up of thousands of different challenges, right? So to say that one person in one community fell through with one specific challenge it's hard to say that there is sufficient data to say that this is working.
Right, and I want to say another thing, and that is that it's also a perception. Again, it's a perception. I was talking to a couple.
There's also like a media issue, or how these things are covered. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So I was talking to a couple last week, and they were having a lot of issues that he was. He would get angry and he would be nasty to her. So we met, and after this is they've been working on this, and he said to me, in the past 4 months, I got angry at her and yelled at her once. Only once. And she said, yes, you did. And she started telling all the things that he did at the time. And I said, just 1 second, 1 second. Is that an improvement over the past? She said, it's a huge improvement. Only once in 4 months, that's amazing. So I said, wait a second. But right away, as soon as he said there was an improvement, she lit into him and told him about all the negative things he had done that time, without even for a second acknowledging that there was an improvement. So we look at, you see corruption, you see something wrong. Oh, they're corrupt. Maybe not. Maybe, something happened there. Yes, things happen that are not right in every community, in every group, and every person, I think, except for great tzaddikim, righteous people. We all make mistakes. But what are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the fact that someone made a mistake and right away, look, religious people aren't making mistakes? No. Religious people make mistakes like everybody else, but let's focus on what is their focus in life? They have a goal in life, which is to improve themselves.
Can
I add something?
Yeah.
I would just add that, maybe Rabbi Levin will say this is too controversial, I don't know, but like anything in the world, if you do something many, many times, it doesn't really hold the kind of meaning that it should. And it's been my personal experience, and I'm sure anybody who's really been a part of a Jewish community that's ran in a specific way for a long time has found that there's some life that you just get used to living, and if you're not mindful of the Torah's message and the message of the mitzvahs, there is a possibility of someone that does many, many mitzvahs, wraps tefillin every morning, lights Shabbat candles, but hasn't really thought about what the message of the Torah could be or should be. And I would add that I think that that's perhaps one of the innovations that Chassidus attempts to offer with meditation and reflecting, where you're supposed to take at least 2-3 minutes a day to really think about how you're going to improve yourself and how to make yourself better. But that's the reality of life, that we do something many, many times, and it's no longer quite as meaningful, as it should be. And so you can have people who are raised in Jewish communities, and the only thing they know is religious life, and they're doing a ton of mitzvahs, but they haven't really thought about how, what that means for real, or how to apply that in different situations that are not maybe part of their exact education and environment. And so there'll be some struggle with making it apply to newer parts of life that they didn't really think about. So I would say it's definitely an added challenge that I've found with people who've been religious all their life, is that they haven't always taken the time to really think things through. Whereas you'll meet somebody who's newer to Judaism, this will shock them, but they wake up in the morning, they're excited to be serving God, and some of us wake up in the morning, we're serving God today because we served God yesterday. Do we know what that means? Have we thought about that? Maybe yes, maybe no. But then the clash of having someone both religious and not acting that way means that the religious part is not truly a part of them. It's maybe a way that they behave, but it's not a way that they truly live.
I agree with that, but there's something else I want to say, and that is in the spirit of what we said before about not judging people. That same person who's just living his life because that's the way he was raised and that's the way he does it, chooses every Shabbat not to work and not to go to the movies and not to cook. And he chooses, when he goes to a restaurant, to a kosher restaurant. And he chooses, or she chooses, before Shabbat to stop everything and light a Shabbat candle and to do all the things that Jewish people are supposed to do. And even if they're not totally observant, but they're observant in many ways. And these are people who are living a life that they have to every day choose, to put on the tefillin in the morning, to daven, to pray, and etc. So there's a lot of things. The word choose is loose though, because choose means you have various options. You choosing when they're on. I haven't really thought about that, right? Once they become an adult,
I
don't know. I think anybody who on Friday evening stops and lights a Shabbat candle and makes Kiddush on Shabbos is making that choice. There are people who choose not to do it.
It's a choice, but it's not. There's multiple levels.
It doesn't justify hurting people. It doesn't justify negativity. But remember that they are actually doing many things consciously in order to connect to Judaism. And if they're doing it culturally or whatever reason they're choosing to do that instead of doing lots of other things that people could be doing.
So,
right? So I think we got to give them credit.
I'm not going to agree with you with your choice of the word choose. I don't think.
Okay.
I think. Look, we're not going to judge anybody. But
I don't think today.
I could understand if somebody told me that they've put on tefillin 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 times in their life, and they haven't thought about it in the last 30 years. I don't think that you choose to make a coffee in the morning, or you just wake up in the morning and you make a coffee, and then when you don't do it, what happened to my day today, right? But it's so part of your routine, right? So then some of those things are. Putting aside community pressure and family things, putting all that aside, some of it is so much part of what you do that it's not something to think about, right?
Yes, I agree.
When you want to introduce something new, that's a challenge.
But nevertheless, it takes effort to do it. And it's an effort that they're doing to putting on the tefillin or to lighting the Shabbat candle, as opposed to the effort of just getting up and doing something else or not making any effort at all. So we have to give them credit for the effort and for the fact that they are, in fact, choosing. I think it's choosing. I think it's a choice. I think if a guy gets up in the morning, puts on tefillin, and he just doesn't think about it much, but he has put on the tefillin, and he could easily not think about it and not do it.
I don't know. I've met people, I've asked them if they've put on tefillin. They have to think about it. They have no idea if they put on tefillin that day.
Okay.
Right? So that means that at the end of it means that and then the guy tells me yes, then he tells me no, then he tells me yes, then he has to think, where was he at 7 o'clock this morning? So that means that it's
interesting
part of a part of a routine.
It's interesting that we're doing this broadcast.
And not to be judgmental, but I think I can tell you on a personal level, I know that some things that I do, it's something that you do. That's what we always do. How often do I think about it?
Absolutely.
Then someone asks me to explain why you do a certain mitzvah, and you say, wait.
But you do it, nevertheless you do it because you're connected to mitzvah. In other words, maybe that particular mitzvah you're not thinking about at that moment. You're doing it because it's rote, and it's not ideal to do it that way. I agree. But the fact is that you're doing it because you are connected to Judaism, and it connects you to Judaism. Consciously, subconsciously, it's your life, and therefore you do it. Someone whose life is to live a religious Jewish life has chosen to live that way, then a lot of the things are by rote, but it's all part of the choice to live this kind of life.
Granted, and every mitzvah that they do is meaningful, but you can also have on the flip side where they're doing things that don't fit into the rest of what they're doing.
Okay.
So coming from an outsider's perspective, not always being as observant as I am now, and coming from different circles and hearing from different people, even myself, what I thought at one point was that you could tell the difference between someone who knew the meaning behind the mitzvah they were doing and someone who were just doing it as robotic. So they're being coined in the more secular Jewish world as robots or orthoprax, where they're only practicing the mitzvah, they're not really cultivating a meaning. And other people who are starting to become observant or have interest, they see, I'm not going to say mostly, but they see people who are doing it in a robotic way without seeing the passion from the inside, and might as well, it's a judgment call too, but they're turned off because if I'm supposed to and somebody's teaching me the love for a mitzvah, why is a person who has done it their whole life not have that same love?
I would agree. So that is absolutely correct, and unfortunately what happens if they do the mitzvahs just robotic, then often they don't pass the passion on to the children, and the children go away from it. It's true, and they themselves, sometimes when they're challenged, it's not, and perhaps it's not, maybe a reason why it's not affecting the rest of their lives. It's very interesting that today's broadcast is happening right before Tu B'Shvat, which is tonight. And Tu B'Shvat is the time of the New Year for trees, and the custom is to eat fruit on Tu B'Shvat. And the Rebbe explains that the meaning of fruit is pleasurable. Fruit has a good taste. Fruit is not necessity. Grain, other foods are necessity, but fruit is something that just adds pleasure to life and good taste. And spiritually, what that means is that we should do the mitzvot not just by rote, but we should bring pleasure and excitement to the mitzvah. And that's a very important message of Tu B'Shvat. That is something that Chassidus teaches at great length, that it's important to really understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and bring excitement to it. And so perhaps In that sense, yes. To just do it by rote is problematic, but still, I think
it's not problematic, but because ultimately you're building a relationship with God, you're improving your place in this world. But you could have this paradox where on the one hand they're practicing X, Y, Z, and on the other hand they're not living up to certain things, and it could be just because they truly haven't thought about it.
Right.
There's obviously also a variety of issues. Every human being has certain issues, right? Just because the person is religious, it doesn't mean that they're not tempted to make money in an illegal way, right? Those are challenges that certain amount of people in the world will have.
And ultimately,
right?
the more you work on yourself and I would say, the more you work on yourself and do mitzvot for the purpose of serving God and refining yourself, the more that will carry over to things like not stealing and not cheating, because it's all about that. I mean, religion is not just about praying 3 times a day. Religion is about affecting you as a person and how you behave towards other people and how honest you are and how you run your business and etc. and everything like that. Okay.
All right, great. So the last thing we're going to do is explain how you met. To give it a nice bonding close, you can explain it shortly, very shortly, how you met.
I don't know. No, I'm kidding, I have no idea.
We met because we both work here on Chabad, and actually Rabbi Bernstein's grandfather was a member of the community that I grew up in Stamford Hill in England. We know each other very well. Rabbi Bernstein's grandfather was my father's lawyer. So we've known each other.
You think every Chabadnik is a rabbi, and some people are lawyers.
That's right. And we work close by to each other, and we've gotten to know each other.
We get to visit each other occasionally. Yeah. The very first time that we met, I don't remember. I'm sure probably it's very meaningful. It's so meaningful that I can't remember it.
And Rabbi Bernstein, how can anybody watching this video find you?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm on Facebook, Shaya Bernstein. You're welcome to visit me. I'm on Twitter, also Shaya Bernstein. You can see my website, but you're not going to see much of me. If you want to hang out with me, you can visit me on Facebook or Twitter.
And me, also Facebook, but call my office, 650-424-9800. Website is chabadgsb.com. And the best way to get to know me is to sit together at a Shabbat table and have a bowl of chicken soup and talk. And no, we're not going to rope you in or try and change your life. We're just going to welcome you and have a good Shabbat dinner together.
I would add the 2020 version of having chicken soup is I'll be happy to grab coffee or a beer with anyone who's interested.
All right, that sounds good.